Many 90s Image Comics characters had team-ups with other publishers' heroes, and Spawn was no different. Now, the Todd McFarlane anti-hero is revitalizing that proud tradition by crossing over to Batman's world once again. Though he and the Caped Crusader make interesting partners, there are some characters at another publisher who might fit even better into his world. Marvel Comics has several iconic and obscure characters who would suit Spawn's adventures to a hellish T. Whether they'd fit right in alongside him or clash with his darker style, these heroes could make the perfect tag team partners to the face of Image Comics. Here are some of the Marvel figures who'd make for even better Spawn team-ups than DC's Batman. (1) Venom and Spider-Man. Before Image Comics, Todd McFarlane made his mark at Marvel with his Spider-Man books. He'd eventually get his own title with the Webslinger before departing, though this only came after he co-created the now iconic Venom. Spider-Man is a lot more of a goody two-shoes, and he'd immediately clash with Spawn's much more violent way of doing things. This sort of story essentially writes itself, especially when factoring in that both Peter Parker and Spawn have had a ton of tragedy in their lives. Then there's the even more logical choice of Venom, who's easily McFarlane's second most famous creation. Spawn's design is essentially Venom wearing Drive Strange's cape and Ghost Rider's chains, and given his similarly symbiotic suit, Eddie Brock might think him to be another one of the Clintar symbiotes. Whether he's portrayed as his original, more villainous self or the post-90s anti-hero persona of the Lethal Protector, Venom could eat brains as fast as Spawn could shoot them out of their respective heads. In the case of both the Wallcrawler and his former rival, the two teaming up with Spawn would be an instant sales sensation. 2. Wolverine and the X-Men. Even before the grim and gritty 1990s, Wolverine was the requisite bad boy over at Marvel Comics. With a bad attitude and claws to match, Wolverine has long since been the best he is at what he does. Of course, Spawn is of a similar mentality when it comes to justice, so the two would likely get along fine, at the end of the day. Given that Wolverine is very much the face of the X-Men property, Wolverine teaming up with Spawn would serve a dual purpose and similarly see record sales. The best idea for such a team-up is to jump off the modern Krakoa setup, with Spawn investigating means through which Heaven and Hell seek to exploit the living mutant island. From there, he and Wolverine seek to take out these threats from the source, unleashing and unsheathing unholy vengeance. Add in art from McFarlane, Jim Lee, or Mark Silvestri and the recipe is sure to be one that entices readers of both properties. 3. Doctor Strange. Beyond some of the more mainstream and traditional heroes, Marvel also has a host of figures who continually deal with the dark arts and the supernatural. Chief among these characters is Sorcerer Supreme Drive Strange, who's known for his esoteric, reality-bending, and mind-warping adventures. Seeing the somewhat Lovecraftian horror elements of Strange's world mesh with Spawn's grittier fantasy would make for interesting visuals, especially given that Spawn's reliance on magic is different from Strange's. 4. Ghost Rider. Of course, pairing Spawn with Ghost Rider seems like a no-brainer, especially since they essentially share the same origin story. Decked out with chains in search of vengeance, these two could take on demons like no one else. This could even see the various Ghost Riders or even the entire Midnight Suns group align with the Scorched, a team of Hellspawns. In this hypothetical crossover we could also see a meeting between Mephisto and Malebolgia where we would see both fighting for the supremacy of Hell. This would let us see which of the two is the most powerful or the most intelligent. 5. Street Heroes. Even among the superheroes with no or less spectacular powers, Spawn would fit in well. For much of his early publication history, he mulled about in the alleyways of New York, wrangling with the mob and other street-level threats. Given this and his nature as an unwitting soldier in Hell's army, he wouldn't be out of place in Hell's Kitchen fighting against or alongside Daredevil. The irony of a Catholic dressed as the devil and a man who hates his own hellish powers would certainly pave the way for interesting gravitas. Likewise, the one-man military known as the Punisher is in some ways what Al Simmons was before he became Spawn. Spawn could thus either confront Frank Castle on his actions or attempt to help him, depending on the story. Other possibilities include Moon Knight, Cloak and Dagger. The former is the pawn of a moon god, giving him a similar situation to Spawn's relationship with Malebolgia. His current situation with his Midnight Mission is not unlike Spawn's ambitions in his ongoing comic. Plus, with Moon Knight's raised profile, there's no better time for the two to meet. Cloak and Dagger, on the other hand, are perhaps some of Marvel's more underutilized street-level heroes. This provides even more potential for the two. Cloak even wears a mystical, shadowy shroud similar to Spawn's costume, and when combined with his dark outlook, it makes the two a lot alike. Dealing with human interest crimes as well as dark dimensions fits both franchises. For now, that has been all for this video. Unfortunately, Marvel has been reluctant to do crossovers in recent years. But let's hope that one day they decide to change this, because they are missing out on a great opportunity. We are the Comic Awakens and we'll see you in the next video.